welcome back to the Gumboot garden. We are going to be making, baking, and decorating gingerbread houses. So let's go ahead and get this dough started because it is quite late already. So the first couple of things we need to start with are 3 3/4 cups of flour and 3/4 cup of brown sugar. And make sure that when you measure out the brown sugar, you're firmly packing that into the measuring cup. Next, we're going to have to put in our baking soda and all of our spices. So we're going to be using a ground cinnamon, ground cloves, and ground ginger for our spice. It's 1½ teaspoons of baking soda, 3 teaspoons of our ground ginger, and 1½ teaspoons of our ground cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Then we need butter. I've just cut them into these bite-sized pieces of butter here, but in total we need 150 grams that we're gonna toss in with this mixture here, and then we're gonna blend it up just until it makes like a fine breadcrumb texture. Now that we've mixed the dry ingredients together in with the butter, we have to add in our wet ingredients, which would be an egg, a little bit of milk, and some golden syrup. Now, here in New Zealand and also in the UK, it actually is called golden syrup, but I believe it's the equivalent of just our typical maple syrup or syrup that we would use on pancakes in the US. And because I am actually low on the golden syrup, I am going to make my second batch with normal maple syrup. So we need 1/2 cup of golden sugar, 1 egg, and just a tablespoon of milk. And we're gonna blend this up again, but just enough to make the dough. We don't wanna over blend this mixture.
I have finished blending my mixture, and as you can see, it's still quite crumbly, so be careful when you're doing the blending because it won't come together into a nice smooth mixture until it's actually been kneaded together. To do this, we put some flour on our surface first, and again, don't overdo it. We only knead it until it comes together in a nice smooth ball of dough. This is also the initial batch I made with golden syrup, and it came out beautifully. I did notice with the maple syrup, the mixture still worked out well, but the dough was a little bit softer and harder to work with. So if you do have the option, go with the golden syrup.
Once we've got it so it's coming out smooth, we just want to cut this into 3 pieces and make 3 discs, wrap them in plastic wrap, and get them in the refrigerator. And we want to refrigerate them for 30 minutes before we roll those out and cut them into our gingerbread pieces. That was enough just to make 1 gingerbread house, so I'm just going to go ahead and make the next one, and I'll meet you back here as soon as we're ready to take the first set out of the refrigerator and roll that out. All right, so I have chilled the dough for a bit over 30 minutes, and I think it's probably closer to 45. I'm just going to take 1 disc out at a time because they do soften up quite quickly and they're harder to work with. So the first disc that we're going to do, we're going to roll it out, and we have to do both the front and the back of the gingerbread house with this. So I'm just putting it on parchment paper, and I'm laying a piece of parchment paper on top, and I'm just gonna start to roll this out. And we wanna roll it out until the dough is about 5 millimeters thick. When I found a recipe online, it came with a template for the cutouts. So I have just printed those off and cut them out. And I'm just gonna place them on top of the dough and cut it out with a knife. Oh boy. Okay, so don't put the paper directly onto the dough because it sticks. So now my front side has just crumbled. So I'm just gonna redo that and put a piece of the parchment paper in between the cutout before I do this again. Let's try this again. I've got the front side and one of the walls placed on my baking sheet. We just need to put this in the refrigerator for 10 minutes before we put it in the oven. The dough goes soft quite quickly, so we just want to make sure it's a little bit firmer before we cook that.
And here is where I just got down to business. I was rolling and cutting the cookies out, putting them in the refrigerator for 10 minutes, then swapping the ones in the refrigerator to go into the oven, taking them out, cooling them, and just making sure I had all of the pieces for the entire 2 houses. And I did also use 2 different types of templates to make these houses. So we're going to end up with 2 different shaped houses, which I thought would be quite nice and different.
I'm not sure I've explained this process like fully. So what we want to do is after the dough has been refrigerating for 30 minutes, we want to take 1 disc out at a time, roll that out and cut out our pieces. Once you roll it out and you cut your pieces out and you put them on your baking sheet, they need to go into the refrigerator for 10 minutes before they bake. And then once that is done, then you're going to put them in the oven and bake them for 10 to 15 minutes. Now I've been doing 10 minutes in my oven and just flipping them around after 5 minutes just because our oven doesn't cook evenly, and they've been turning out great. Once they're out of the oven, you want to let them sit for 10 minutes before you move them to the baking rack. And I'm just trying to kind of get them going and keep them moving as quickly as I can because it's very late here. It's like past midnight, so I'm just trying to get to bed at this point. Day number 2 of this gingerbread house making. We're a little bit late today because we did some stuff during the day. But I've made the royal icing and I will put the ingredients for that up on the screen. And now we need to put the house together. So I have a bunch of coffee mugs out to help support the house as it dries. And then once it's all dried, then you'll be able to decorate. I've just put some of the royal icing into a plastic baggie and cut off a very small bit on the tip. And we're just gonna use that to pipe the icing onto the sides. We have this part built. Now we need to get the roof to stay on. I don't know about this. Let's see. Oh, this says that I need to let this stand for an hour before I can put the roof on.
So while that first house is drying, I'm just going to put together the second house, and we're still going to have some time after that. So I will take this time out to go put some Christmas music on and start to decorate the house for Christmas time.
All right, it's been an hour, so now we're just gonna go ahead and put the roof on these houses and then wait another hour to decorate. So while I am doing this and have been letting this dry, we've been decorating for Christmas. Right now the tree is going up, so exciting things happening. One thing I noticed about putting together this gingerbread house, the walls are clearly supposed to go inside the ends, and I've put them on the outside. So it's making putting this roof on a little bit tricky.
While things have been tricky because I put the house together wrong, the royal icing makes everything so forgiving. I have been able to fill in all of the gaps, and there were some big ones, with that royal icing. So once it's all together, you can't even tell that there were any gaps to begin with. So it worked out perfectly.
I know what I'm gonna do. Layer of fruit pastels, then M&Ms.
What are you doing now?
Yeah, so it's gonna be a window.
No, you can't. No, you can't. The whole thing won't fall apart.
Would it actually?
Yeah. No, you actually can't. Okay, the kids are on the verge of getting themselves into major trouble from all the sugar that they've been eating. So I've got to get going, but they really did a fantastic job at decorating their gingerbread houses.